So I'm going to go ahead and start recording now. So Eric, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you to get started.
All right, great. Thank you so much. What a large crowd. I really love it. Always love a large crowd. Um, this is the second program I'm doing for this library. It's very nice to be back for another program. They've been very well received, and I think a lot of people get a lot of good information from the programs that I do and presentations that I show you on different subjects of genealogy. So I get started with a little bit of my introduction about how I got started into genealogy. I am an adoptee. I was told at age 7 that I was adopted, and obviously I had no idea at age 7 what that really meant. But I was told I was loved twice, and it's been suggested that I use that as a title for a book when I finally write one, if I ever find the time to do so. I think it's a great idea, a great title. So I started my search for my biological family when my daughter was born in 1997, and I had very little to go on. All I had was a page of my hospital record that I was born in Miami, Florida, and a piece of paper from an adoption decree, one page, stating my biological mother as Rose Becker. Based on what my mother told me, we believed that she was young, Orthodox, and most likely from New York City area. So I started my research by joining a group called ALMA, Adoptee Liberty Movement Association. They taught me how to go to the library and look up indexes of people born that I was looking for between 1945 and 1954 with the name Rose Becker, born in the New York City area, making her age 12 to age 21. So young. I joined a bunch of other groups. Alma also taught me how to make those very hard to understand or how to do phone calls to possible biological family. It was very scary for me, but they role played with me and taught me how to do that, and I got better at it. So it worked out. I made a lot of phone calls to possible biological mothers, and I sort of got all the same thing. I got, I'm sorry, that isn't me. Good luck. I hope you find what you're looking for. And down the road, a little more time went by. I joined more groups, one included as the Florida Adoption Reunion Registry, since I was born in Miami. They got back to me after 3 years and let me know that my biological mother was age 38 at my birth, so not young, and from a Midwestern state starting with the letter I. So now I have to look for a Rose Becker born between 1927 and 1928 in Indiana, Idaho, Iowa, or Illinois. So my whole parameter of my research had to change to account for new information. And the same thing happened. I'm sorry, that isn't me. Good luck. I hope you find what you're looking for. Down the road, I decided to do an ancestry DNA test. It was suggested I do that. And I also did a 23andMe DNA test. When I got my results from Ancestry, I was matched with a gentleman named Norman and his wife, Jean, who had a very large family tree. I got in touch with them, looked over the tree, and she says, I know you're part of the family because you're a very close relation to my husband, Norman. Great, but we don't know where to put you in the family tree. She suggested I reach out to a woman named Judy in Miami. She gave me her address. I wrote her a nice letter explaining my problem. And 3 days later, I got a call from a woman named Susan. Now, Susan tells me that Judy is her maternal half sister and they don't share the same father, just the same mother. And I told my story to her. She agreed to do an ancestry DNA test. 8 weeks later, I had two half sisters and the true name of my biological mother, Bella Fira, born in Chicago, Illinois, in August of 1927. So I had some answers. I had the true name of my biological mother and some of the family members. From there, I started building my family tree, contacting other DNA matches that were related to the family. And I built out my mother's side of the tree as best I could and learned about who my aunts and uncles and cousins and everybody were. And then I started working on my biological father's side, where I was matched with a very close match that could have been a first cousin, but she turned out to be a paternal half sister. She had a name of somebody she believed to be her father. He was gone before she was born, and she wasn't sure. She said her mom lied to her a lot. I said, let's let's look through the ancestry and see what we can find out based on the DNA matches instead of going by any names yet. The name turned out to be correct. He's still alive. He doesn't want to know who I am, but that's fine. That doesn't change my life in any way. And I built out his family tree to find out that he's also an adoptee, and I found his biological family. Okay. So from that, I was able to learn more and more about my family and what I was able to. Someone wrote, is it stacky for everyone? Is everybody hearing me okay? A thumbs up from somebody. David, thank you for your head shake. That's perfect. Okay. So, so then over time, I learned more and more. So this program I'm doing today, a presentation, is what happens when you get those DNA matches after you DNA test. And I'll just let you know that I do cover Ancestry more than any of the other DNA testing companies, only because it's the largest and I use it more often than any other. But all of the other DNA testing companies have similar tools and techniques that you can use and follow along with other DNA testing companies. So if you tested with MyHeritage or Family Tree DNA, they do have similar ways of looking up information to help you find it. Okay. So let me start my slides. I know it was working. Get rid of this. Let's go to the beginning. Oh, we got a lot of people still coming in. That's great. We'll give them a moment too. Okay. So I call it DNA matches and your genealogical research. And I do start off with a little bit of terminology because not everybody knows everything. I like to bring people up to speed on what things are. So DNA, what is DNA? DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid, is a long molecule that contains our unique genetic code. Like a recipe book, it holds all the instructions for making the proteins in our body. It makes your eyes blue or brown, your body tall or short. So what is genetic genealogy? So genealogy is simply the study of one's family tree or ancestry. Genetic genealogy uses DNA testing to determine the genetic relationship between individuals. I regularly use different DNA tests for my clients to assist in building correct family trees. I use what's called centimorgans, the combined segments of DNA shared between two persons to determine a possible family relationship. So what is a centimorgan? A centimorgan is just a fancy word named after somebody named Morgan that geneticists use to describe the length of DNA segments. Specifically, it measures the difference between chromosome positions. We inherit DNA on each chromosome from each parent, and we will share segments of genetic material of varying sizes with our relatives. So why do we use DNA for genealogy? We use DNA in our research to find DNA relatives to increase the scope of our family tree. In today's modern world and through scientific breakthroughs, there are several companies that offer DNA testing. These tests are usually done by submitting a sample of your saliva, which contains your DNA, or a mouth swab that collects DNA material from inside of your cheek. The most popular DNA testing companies right now are Ancestry DNA, 23andMe, MyHeritage, Living DNA, and Family Tree DNA. So after you DNA test, you're going to get a list of DNA matches. Who are they? Most people will know at least a few of the matches they will find on their DNA match list. The matches you do not know are the ones we want to look at. we first need to determine which side of the family your DNA matches are from, mom's side or dad's side. Keep getting people popping in, but that's okay. Another way to find out more about your match is a little bit like stalking, but you want to find them and look for them and see if you can find information about them on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, or anywhere else you think you might find out who this person is, how old they are, where they're living. I will be using some of my ancestry matches for examples. So this is a small list of my DNA matches. My daughter did DNA test, and it's the only relationship that is at 100% probability. There is no other option on the amount of centimorgans. 3,464 centimorgans can only mean that this is a parent-child match. There are several things that you want to look for when you're looking at your DNA matches. Okay. What's their name? Do they have a picture? How many centimorgans do you share with them? Do they have a tree, a public tree? A public tree means that you can find their tree on the Ancestry website. Linked tree means that they uploaded their DNA to their spot in the tree. So it's a publicly DNA linked tree. It tells you how many people they have within their tree, and you can view the match. Going down one step, I have a couple of close family members. One is a paternal half-sister. It shows me her name. It shows me she has a publicly linked tree of about 62 people. And I color-coded my paternal side, since I know she is on my dad's side, with a purple dot that you can color code. And all the different DNA testing companies have a similar feature of color coding or marking your DNA matches to which side of the family they're on. Susan, I mentioned earlier, is my maternal half-sister. I marked all my maternal matches with a yellow dot. Then I get down to another fairly close match, someone named Shan Anderson. Now it says she is between a first and second cousin match. She shares 501 centimorgans with me, and she has an unlinked tree. Meaning that she didn't link her DNA to the tree, but it is public. So I can view at least some information that she has on there. I want to find out which side of the family she's on. Let us look at the shared matches between two DNA matches. After deciding which unknown match you wish to study, click on the shared matches for that person. You will see a list of matches that share DNA between you and the unknown match. You will probably be able to determine which side of the family they are from. Unless you're an adoptee and don't know who any of your family are, it makes it a little more difficult, but there are ways around it. You must start family trees. Definitely one for you and one for your unknown match, especially if they do not have a tree. You want to look for information to help you find out who they are. You will then look for common surnames and information that match between the two trees, yours and theirs. The unknown match I will be using is named Shan Anderson. Now, there's a couple of things we have to make assumptions on that hopefully are correct. One, she looks younger than I am. It could be a very old picture and she could be older. Not sure, but most people post a picture that's fairly recent of themselves. Then her name. Is her name Shanna? Is her name Shannon? Do some research to see if you can find out the true name. The main thing is I have shared matches between Shannon, myself, and other DNA matches. The first one is always going to be my daughter for any of my shared matches because she's my daughter. She's going to share the same people on her list. And the next one is my half-sister, Susan, who is on my mother's side. This tells me right away that Shannon has to be from my mother's side. How are you and the match related? Based on the shared match with my known maternal half-sister, we now know which side of the family the match is from. The first thing to do is mark your DNA match on the correct side of the family. Put a little dot marking her as your maternal side. The next thing to do is to look at the possible relationships to see how your match might be related to you based on the shared amount of centimorgans. Always look for the more common or more probable relationships that you would share with her. Ancestry has a relationship assignment tool, and all the other DNA testing companies have a similar feature. So you can mark add relationship. Do you know which side of your family Shan Anderson is on? Yes, I know she is on my mother's side, and make it that way. Now, there's an ancestry relationship tool. Based on the amount of centimorgans or shared amount of DNA you share with the person, it'll give you a breakdown of what the probability is of that relationship. As you can see, there are a lot of them. A bunch of them are at 84%. Some are at 13%, leaving only 3% further down, which I disregarded for this presentation because they're outside of the range of shared DNA for those relationships. But based on her picture and a little bit of information I was able to find, she is younger than me. So some of the relationships are not going to make sense. She's not going to be my second great grandparent or grandchild. She's not going to be half great grand anything. She can only be within next generation or so. So those are the ones I want to discount out and say, I'm not looking for relationships as those. It only leaves a few. 84% first cousin once removed, meaning she is a child of my first cousin, or a cousin, a child, or a parent from my parent. A half first cousin, meaning we only share one side of a grandparent, a grandmother or grandfather, but not both. A first cousin, meaning we share a common set of grandparents, and a half niece nephew, which I'm also going to discount and get rid of because none of my half siblings that I found to date have Shannon as their daughter. So then she would not be a half niece or nephew. There's another site that I always recommend to people to go to help you understand more about the centimorgans you share with your DNA matches. It's called DNA Painter. It is free to sign up. You would want to sign up with an email address and a username, password kind of combination, and you can use the tools for free. One of the tools is called the Shared Centimorgan tool. What it allows you to do is it allows you to plug in the amount of shared DNA in centimorgans or percentage if you click this button here. Centimorgans are usually better to grab if you can see it. And it'll give you, again, the probability of the relationship that's possible at that amount of centimorgans. So here at 90% are some of the same ones, and 5% some of the same ones we saw on Ancestry. Again, you want to discount the ones that don't really make sense. So the ones we'll look at is half first cousin once removed, or first cousin. So Shannon has a tree, and her name is Shannon. She has a tree called the Niles family tree, but on her tree, she doesn't have anybody named Niles. And she's only showing her mother's side of the family, Karen Victoria Leone. I'll explain why she doesn't have her father's side on there anymore. But knowing that, looking at my DNA matches and what I built out in my tree already from what I learned, I am not related on her father's side to anybody named Niles. I don't have anybody by that name. So I am related to Shannon on her mother's side through my mother's side. Okay, so we're both maternal matches. Here, and you have to make an assumption that the home person The main person is the person who is the holder of the tree. So this would be her. And this would be her parent, her mother, and this would be her maternal grandparents. These two, Joseph and Julia, would be her mother's mother and father. There are numbers below Karen, Victoria, Leone, and Julia, and this represents the date, even though it's not in the correct format that we use in genealogy. In genealogy, we use the day, the month, and the year. Based on what she's saying, it looks like this is the 7th month, which is July, the 3rd day, 1949. And then I'm saying this is going to be, if she keeps the same format, January 5th, 2010, though it could be October 5th, 2010, right? Julia says she died. She's saying that Julia died 6/15/1958. So I want to start doing some research. Who are these people? How are they definitely related to Shannon? Make sure that they're the people who Shannon says they are. So how do we find information to verify our match's family? You want to use the Ancestry search tool, if you're using Ancestry, to look for information about her parents and her grandparents to show you how they might be linked to your family. There are many places to look for information besides Ancestry, including FamilySearch.org, which is run by the Mormon Church, newspapers.com, which is a listing of newspapers and articles throughout the United States and beyond. It is a subscription-based place, and Fold3 also requires a subscription for military-related information. You need to go step by step until you have enough to verify what you have learned about your match. Using records will help you find more information to help you build out your family tree and to understand who your unknown DNA match is. Be careful of other family trees you may find showing your family or the match's family. Make sure that they show at least a few pieces of documentation to verify that it is correct and truly your family. Just let me admit that person. Okay, so right away, I don't need to research Shannon all that much. I want to go further into the past. So I'm going to plug in Karen Victoria Leone into the Ancestry research tool so I can look up information about her, get hints or information about her. So she did state that she was born in 1949, most likely in July. And you can either leave it as that, or you can click the box here for exact 1949, or you can plus or minus 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. So if you don't know the exact birth year, you can adjust the level of what year it might be. I put in her birth year and that her child is Shannon Anderson. Always mark the gender button, male or female, so it'll make things easier for you to find information on. So one of the things I found right away was a marriage or an engagement announcement between Shannon Niles. Her family tree was named Niles, so I believe that to be her maiden name. And she is marrying somebody named Christian Anderson. So that seems to make a lot of sense, right? She is the daughter of Michael Niles of Middleton and Karen Leone of Chicago. So this makes sense based on the information we already have. A couple of clues. One is that Michael Niles is in Middleton and the mother, Karen Leone, is in Chicago. This tells me they are most likely no longer together, either separated or divorced. I will not have to worry about who he's the son of, Christian Anderson, because he's not part of the family. You can do research into it if you wish. So the other thing I want to look for is any kind of other records that will help me verify her tree. So I have a newspapers.com obituary, Karen Victoria Leone, with parents Vincent Leone and Irene Leone, with a relative named Sean, who we haven't seen the name yet, but it says she was born the 3rd of July, 1949, and died January 5th, 2010. This corresponds to what Shannon already stated in her tree. There are a few others, including a Find a Grave, which is another good place to look for information. It's also free. You can use it for free, showing the same information. So everything seems to be correct here. Well, let's look at the obituary. Now, most of the things on Ancestry have been transcribed into text for you to read easily. Here it shows some information that was available in the newspaper article. But I always recommend that you read the article itself. Don't only go by the transcription because there could be errors. Names could be wrong, spelling, location, dates. You always want to read the actual article for yourself. So there was some great information on the transcription, but if you read it, you might get more clues and help you build out Shannon's family tree, which is called a mirror tree. You're mirroring somebody else's tree and increasing information in it so that you can learn more about the family. So Karen is survived by 3 children: Shannon, C.A. Anderson, her husband; James, his wife Beth Niles; and Sean Niles, who doesn't seem to have a spouse. She had a fiance named Kenneth Ekstrom, but he's not part of the family. We can disregard him. But she did have a sister named Laura, with a husband named Brad Bruins. She is the father of her children, Michael Niles. Everything's fitting into place here. 5 precious grandchildren, Jaden, Maverick, and Brooks Niles. I can attribute those grandchildren to James and Beth Niles, mainly because James and Beth are a married couple. It seems more likely that these grandchildren are theirs and not Sean, since he doesn't have a spouse listed. You might find it to be incorrect, but for the sake of argument, we'll go that way. And November and Amber Eden Anderson, meaning those children are children of Shannon and her husband, C.A. Anderson. And a niece, Paige Bruins, who would be a child of Laura and Brad Bruins. Now, if you know when this newspaper obituary was written, you can also get the clue that because she was preceded in death by her parents, Vincent and Irene Leone, that when you go to put them in the tree, even though you don't know when they died, you can put before 2010, when Karen died. So you would put B-E-F period 2010, before 2010. This might help you get more information about Vincent and Irene, which we want to look for. So I found a few other things, including a Texas marriage index for Karen V. Leone, born about 1950, getting married the 14th of June, 1991 in Gonzales, Texas. And there's somebody named Karen V. Berry Leone with the correct birth date and death date. And more public indexes records: Karen V. Berry, Karen V. Leone, Karen V. Niles. I know this all to be the same person. So I want to look at the records to see what they might tell me. So I did also find a divorce index. Makes sense. Based on the engagement announcement, they were not together. So Karen V. Niles divorced Michael R. Niles on June 11th, 1991, but were married the 20th of July, 1968. Number of children, 3. This tells me right away that this seems to be the correct person. She did have 3 children. Her spouse's name was Michael Niles, and I have now a divorce date. Well, look at this. Here's a marriage index. 3 days later, she married somebody named Dean P. Berry, which makes sense from what I found. 3 days after her divorce was final and the ink was dry, she got remarried to this Mr. Berry on the 14th of June, 1991 in Gonzales, Texas. So she got divorced there. She got remarried there 3 days after her divorce. Now, I think I learned enough about Karen and who her family are, but now who's her mother? Irene Fuhrer. I can also look for Vincent Dominic Leone and do research on him, which you should definitely do. Look into both the parents. But I'm going to focus on Irene because I feel that's the way to go. But both sides should be done. So Irene Fuhrer has a spouse named Vincent Leone, who has a child named Karen V. Leone, and she is female. Now, I didn't have a birth year or a death date or anything like that. I just know what I have and see what we can find. So I found an Indiana U.S. marriage record for an Irene Fuhrer, marrying in February 1949. Wow, that's funny because her daughter was born in July of 1949. So looks like she was already pregnant when Karen was born in July of 1949. Okay. Guess they call it a shotgun wedding, as they used to call it. So I have Irene Fuhrer marrying a Vincent Leone. I have a marriage date that might help us find more information. Here, there are suggested records. When you look for a record and you get a search window and you get a document or some sort of information, there's always a suggested record on the side. Okay, here it has several that came up as suggestions showing her name as Ida. Now, it could be her middle name. It could be a nickname of Irene that they used, but it's listed several times. I want to look for an information on an Ida or Irene Ida, Ida Irene, or just Ida Leone or Ida Fuhrer. Okay, so there's several records, 1950 census, 1940 census, 1930, a naturalization record, and Social Security death index. You want to check those out. You want to see what might be there. I happened to look up Irene Leone, and I found in another obituary, Nee Fuhrer, beloved wife of the late Vincent D. Leone. I right away know that this is the correct person because she's the devoted mother of Karen Barry. Okay. It says here Barry and not Berry. Again, people make mistakes, but also Laura and Brad Bruins is listed. Grandmother of Shannon, Jimmy, who was James, and Sean Niles. Fond sister of Molly Sharp. Okay, so now we have more names. This is helpful. Fond sister of Molly Sharp, Sophie Fuhrer, and Bella Harrison, and Abe Fuhrer. Okay, so now we can add more to the tree and find out more information. I looked up Sophie Fuhrer to see what that might say. Sophie Fuhrer, beloved daughter of the late Joseph and Julia Fuhrer. So I know this person is, again, a sibling of Irene and a daughter of Joseph and Julia. It says loving sister of Abraham, Bella, and the late John Harrison. So now I have one of her sisters with her husband, John Harrison, and the late Molly Sharp, Irene Leone, and Sam Fuhrer, devoted aunt, great aunt of many. Great. Doesn't list any of children. This tells me that Sophie might not have had any children of her own, which means, and showing that she doesn't have a married name, means she might not have ever married either. Think about all these clues and hints you're getting from obituaries and documents to help you. The 1930 census shows a Joseph and Julia Fuhrer with a woman named Ida and some of her sisters that she mentioned that were mentioned in the obituaries: Bella, Sophie, Abraham, Molly, Samuel. I believe I have the right family living in Chicago, Illinois during that time. You might not know from the census what year they were born, but if you do the math, Abraham, son, age 8 in 1930 would have made him born between 1921 and 1922. So you can do the math to see when they might have been married and look for information on everybody in the census so you can figure it out. Here I jump to the 1950 census. Here is Joseph with Julia, somebody named James Leone, okay, saying he's son-in-law. So he's one of their daughter's husbands. Ida is the daughter. James is her husband. Karen Victoria, or Karen V, is their granddaughter. This is all fitting in. Okay. Says she was born in August, but we know she was born in July. Okay. Things aren't always perfectly accurate based on what people tell the census taker or what they decide to take or give information on. Always look on census records to see if any of the other family members are still in the area. Most of the time, people didn't move too far away from each other. Always look to see if there are other Fuhrers, Leones, or Niles, or anybody else living in the area. So, like I said, you want to take as much information as you can and build out somebody's pre-existing tree or creating a tree from scratch. So here I posted and put in a picture of the tree, starting with, I started with Karen Victoria V. Leone as the home person, always in black. Her husband, Michael Niles, and her 3 children, James, Sean, Shannon, James with Beth and their children, and Shannon. I didn't add Christian in, Mr. Anderson, but I did put Shannon's children in. I have a sibling for Karen, Laura Ann Leone, married to Brad Bruins, and their daughter Paige. And then I went up and I added Vincent D. Leone and Irene Fuhrer. Okay. I then also added in Irene's siblings, which are all listed here. So it turns out that Irene, or known as Ida, Irene Ida Fuhrer, is my mother's sister. Joseph and Julia are my grandparents. So I was able to put the people in the tree to find out who they are and add it to my tree. So Shannon is a first cousin because my grandparents are the most recent common ancestor. They are my grandparents. 1G for grandparents makes us first cousin. She is once removed because she is 1 generation younger than myself. She is the child of my actual first cousin, Karen Leone, a child of my aunt, Irene Ida Fuhrer. Okay. So right away, what do I want to do? I want to go back to my DNA matches profile and the relationship assignment tool, and I want to put in that she is my first cousin once removed on my mother's side. And it will be marked there as your DNA match and the correct relationship. What if the DNA match is more distant than a first cousin once removed? 500 centimorgans is fairly close. What if it's further away? Here I have one named Melissa Schmitz. Now that name doesn't show up anywhere in my other DNA matches. So how is she related to me? She's a DNA match. It says 4th to 6th cousin. That could mean we could possibly share a great, great, great grandparent or a fifth-time great-grandparent, great-great-great-great-great-grandparent. That's pretty far in the past. It looks like it might be a lot of work. I don't know if I want to tackle it, but there are ways to look at it if there is a tree. Always Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, find out who Melissa Schmitz is. See if you can see her age and where she's living or where she's from. Again, a picture is noted, where again, she seems younger than I am. She might not be on the same generation as I am, like Shannon was, but you never know. She has an unlinked tree, means she didn't link her DNA to it, but I want to find out more. So again, I want to go to shared matches. I see that again, she is a shared DNA match to my maternal half-sister, Susan, means that we share on my mother's side of the family. Right away, you go in, which side of the family is she on? She's on my mother's side, and save it. Now, another thing to notice is that she has two family trees listed. It's showing a headstone of the name Bertrand. Okay, look through your DNA matches and see if this person who's buried here with those names could be your relation. Not mine, but there are two. One says Melissa Schmitz family and one says the Schmitz family. Which one do you want to look at? Which one would you look at? I'd say the one with more people in it. That's what you do. Always go to the larger one and see if there's any link to your family. Okay. So there's a lot of private people here because they're marked as living on Ancestry. You only see people who are marked deceased on a public tree. Anybody who's living or marked living is going to be put as private. Now, I could send her a message on Ancestry. A lot of people don't answer sometimes. But you start with what you have, okay, until she gets to me and answers my message once I send it to her. Build out her tree anyway. Look for information to help you, any hints that it'll give you. So again, I'm going to say that the home person is the person who owns the tree down here at the bottom, and that it looks like she has a marriage, and that she has two brothers, okay? We don't know what her husband's name is, but she's using the name Schmitz. So if I go up one level, again, her parents are private, no names, okay? But I look up to her mother's side of the family, and it shows that her grandfather on her mother's side is George L. Schmitz. So apparently she's taking her mother's name from her grandfather. And there's the name Bertrand that was marked on that headstone in her picture on her family tree image. Okay. I did not find anybody within my DNA matches or my research pointing me to that I am related to either Schmitz or Bertrand's, and if you go up, any other name that's above it. Okay. So this is telling me that I'm not related to the home person, Melissa, on her mother's side, but on her father's side. Okay. Again, her father's side is private, but if you go up, her father's mother is private, meaning she's most likely still alive or marked living. But here is a name, Harry Spilko, her paternal grandfather. Don't have to start there. We can go up one more level, showing that Harry's father was Benjamin Spilko and mother Fanny Levinson. Let's start with that because that's the highest generation. Considering Melissa could be anywhere between a fourth and sixth cousin, you want to go up as high as you possibly can on their tree and research them first and work your way down to the home person. You might have to go up further than Benjamin and Fanny based on the relationship you might have with the home person, your DNA match. So right away, I'm going to go in and I'm going to put in Benjamin Spilko, like I did with my other example. She did have the date 1889 as a birth year, a death year of 1936, but no location. I do have that his spouse was Fanny Levinson. So I do have a couple of things to help me look for information. Here I find a family tree. Benjamin, Benzion, Boltzik, Spilko, Spilka. It has two different last names, Spilko and Spilka. Remember, sometimes names get confused. People hear it one way and write it that way. Some people spell it that way and leave it that way. Okay. So here's information, birth date, a death date, where he was living. But I don't want to look at somebody's family tree. Why? It could be wrong. It could be the wrong family. It could have wrong information. Okay. It does have some information that matches Fanny, Levinson, Spilko, but there's a find a grave showing, showing approximately the same dates. The birth date is different than this tree, but the death date and location is pretty much the same. And here's a census record from 1900, 1930. So you want to look at anything that might make sense. So I go to the find a grave to see what's there. And I find that Benjamin Spilko has a birth date, the 28th November, 1889 in Latvia. He died 19th March, 36 in Queens. He's buried in Queens. And it shows his mother. So now I can go up a generation and look for information about Bessie Spilko, okay, which most likely wasn't her maiden name because his name is Spilko, means his father's name was Spilko, not his mother's name. Spouse, Fanny Spilko, and children. One was on the tree, Harold, and now I have a new son named David. Always look to the suggested records to see if you can find more information. And there are quite a few of them. Census records, Social Security applications, a 20 federal census. Always look to see what's there. So on one of the census records, I find that Benjamin Spilko is 40 years old in 1930 census, which makes him born around 1890, which makes sense. Fanny Spilko, his wife, and two children, David and Harold. Harold in 1930 was 7 years old, meaning that he was born about 1922, 1923, right? To make him age 7 when the census was taken. So let's look for him. I didn't even put in a birth year. I put in Harold Spilka. Could have been Spilko, didn't matter. Father Benjamin, mother Fanny, sibling David. Male. Always click the gender button. Makes it easier for you. So now I find Harold, since he's the one who seems to be the relation to Melissa, not David. So here it says he's born August 22. That makes sense. He died in 1985 in California, stating that his father was, someone posted that his father was Benjamin, his mother was Fanny, and he has a spouse named Natalie. Now, this is helping me build the tree because Harold also had a child named Marty Sue Gerard. Now, her name isn't Spilko or Spilka here. So you have to go under the assumption that Marty Sue is married to a person named Gerard. Again, look to the suggested records. See if you can find anything, including marriage indexes. Here's one from New York and one from Nevada. Were they married to the same? Was he married to Natalie in New York and Nevada? Or was he married a second time? Again, I look for more information. There's ancestry trees for Harold. There's a death notice that somebody posted or an obituary. Harold Spilko is the beloved husband of Dorothy L. Spilko. Okay, now it's not married to Natalie now, so maybe he was married twice. Take a look at see who posted this image. Someone named Lisa Sandifry. It might give you a clue. He is the father of Paul F. Spilko and Mrs. Marty Gerard. Now, I know I have the right family. I'm tracing from step to step to step, from information to information. He's the stepfather to Dale, Ronald, and Eugene Sandefry. That makes sense. Lisa Sandefry posted it. She most likely is going to be a child of either Dale, Ronald, or Eugene. But since he's the stepfather to these people, that's not my line of research. They're not related to me. He's the grandfather of 14 and great grandfather of 4. Doesn't have names, but you can look into them as well once you start building the tree. So now I have new names. I have Harold with a child named Paul F. Spilko and one we knew already, Mrs. Marty Gerard. We know he had a brother named David. So since Lisa had that information on her tree, I want to see maybe what she might have. So I go to her tree and I see that more information. His father is Benjamin. His mother, Harold's mother was Fanny, had a spouse named Natalie, and had a spouse named Dorothy. So he was married twice. He had 2 children with Natalie. One is named Marty Susan. Now I have a middle name to go with Marty Susan Gerard, right? And there's another tree, somebody who has Natalie Paul family tree. So it might be Natalie's family in a way. And then there was someone named Angelique Bundy who had more family about Benjamin and his family. You want to go back up in time because you want to see how they might be related to you. So I added information from the tree to make sure it was correct. So I have here Benjamin, born about 1884, died in 54. That's not quite right, but the name Julia comes back. My mother's mother was a Spilka. Her name was Judith or Julia. And as you remember from Shannon's, she died in 1958, which is correct here. Build the tree. You might not get all the pieces in place perfectly the first time around. And as you can see, you have to go through more documents and more obituaries when the person is further back in time or a further relationship than a first cousin. Okay. So I built out from Harold to Natalie, down to the children, Paul F. and Marty, who I found married to a Paul Norbert Gerard. And I was able to find who Melissa's mother is, Carol. It only made sense that her father would be Paul F. Spilko. Now, again, I went by a bit of an assumption, and sometimes genealogy is like that. I reached out. I finally got an answer. Always consider reaching out to your DNA matches on Ancestry. They might surprise you an answer and give you answers. Okay. She wasn't sure who her father was for quite a long time. Paul and Carol never married. Okay. But I did find the rest of the family, and I built the family out a little bit. So going back, since I did work a lot on my mother's side of the family, since she was the first person I found as an adoptee, I was able to go back from Judith, Julia, my grandmother, to her brother, Benjamin, who had a common father, David Spilka. So I was able to put things into place because you always need to build out your tree back far enough to make sense to the mirror tree. So here how I'm related to Melissa. I am here, Melissa is here, and I was able to put her in my tree. Now, based on the information I found, she seems to be my second cousin once removed. Now, I'm rethinking this a little bit because it's only a 21% chance that she would be my second cousin once removed. Is it possible she is actually further away? One of the possibilities higher up, which I didn't undo, is a half first cousin once removed. So maybe she's descended from only one great-grandparent, not both, which would put her in a higher percentage rate. But for right now, I'm leaving it that she is my second cousin once removed until I find more information. Genealogy is always a building block. You're always building one piece on top of another to get more information. So for right now, I'm listing Melissa as my second cousin once removed on my mother's side. Now you can do this with anybody that's in your DNA match list. If they have a tree, it might be easier. If they don't, obviously it'll be a little harder. But always try to find out true or step-by-step connections between the family. I indicated that she is my second cousin once removed on my mother's side of the family in the DNA part. And in the tree, I marked her as a DNA match, listing her as that relationship. They have lots of different tree tags that you can use, including relationship tags that someone died young, never had children. Whether you're complete with this research, whether it's a brick wall, you can't go any further, or you have other questions about it. So how do you continue building your family tree using your matches? Follow the steps I laid out here. There are lots of different tools and techniques you can use that are similar to this, okay? Always Google different ways of doing it. Continue trying to place your DNA matches into groups. First, your two parents with the dots. Then as you place more of your matches into the tree, you can begin grouping them matches into your 4 grandparents lines, and then your 8 great-grandparents lines. You may not be able to place some of the matches into your tree easily because the matches have no trees or clear documents showing important information to guide you. Use information from one match as a stepping stone to another match. For instance, look for and use obituaries to help you figure out a family line, like I showed you with Shannon. I found several obituaries to help me build the tree. Look for your matches on Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, and other social media platforms that might give you some clues to who they are, who their immediate family are, and where they might be living. Continue for each of your matches and consider reaching out to them for information that might help you build a big, beautiful family tree. Reaching out isn't always easy because they don't always answer, but there are ways to find who people are. One of the books that helped me learn more and guide me into understanding how to use the tools and techniques that I showed you here is a book called Your DNA Guide, the book by a woman named Diane Southard. I am not getting any profit from this, nor is she, but if you buy a book, she's obviously going to make a few bucks. It's called Step-by-Step Plans to Connect with You and Your Family Using DNA. Consider looking her up on Google and on Facebook. She does have a presence. She does hold classes for free sometimes. Zoom calls, Zoom meetings that she shows you different ways of using DNA to help you. And she does have paid for classes that she promotes. My beautiful mother, Bella Fiora, born August 1927 in Chicago. This picture was not dated or marked with a name, but I know it's her. I got it from my sister. She seems to be in her early to mid 20s based on when the picture looks like it was taken based on her hairstyle and jewelry and how old she looks. There are groups on Facebook that'll help you decipher what possible year a picture was taken. Not always perfectly accurate, but a good way to maybe help you a little bit. On one side is my cousin Norman, one of my first DNA matches, who and his wife was a significant help in finding out who my biological maternal side was. My sister Linda is on my paternal side. This is our first ever meeting in Alexandria, Virginia, quite a few years ago now, and we have a wonderful relationship and speak regularly. I also got to visit with her in her home in Nashville. This is my contact information. If you're interested, please join my group on Facebook. There's nothing to do. Just go to the It's All Relative Genealogy on Facebook. It's a group. You can join in and it'll show you information on genealogy, funny stories, listings of when my presentations are going to be and for who, and fun things about long lost family. Who do they think they are? Cute things. I don't post a lot on there except for my presentations. It all depends. If something comes along that I think is be valuable or fun to put on the group site, you'll see it there. My email address is there, its_all_relative@yahoo.com. I am on Twitter and also known as X, but I don't really use it all that much. But if you want to get in touch with me through that, I'll gladly answer you. My webpage is itsallrelativegenealogyllc.com. It's all one word. You should find me just several clicks down from the Ancestry link. I'm actually getting fairly close up there. I might get closer up to Ancestry soon. So a lot of people in here. I know there might be some questions. I just wanted to let you know that, remember, though I did use Ancestry, 23andMe does have a similar shared matches feature. They're not as user-friendly for family tree building and research that Ancestry has, but they do have similar tools to use. MyHeritage, Family Tree DNA, and Living DNA all have similar ways to look for shared matches to see how one person is related to another, and then mark them in their tree, which side of the family they're on. Okay, so I'm going to see what kind of questions we have in the chat box. Will this be recorded? It is. I'm not sure. Okay, I got that. Staticky, we got that straightened out. Okay, so a centimorgan is a measuring device, like an inch or a foot on a ruler. It's a measuring device of how much DNA you share with your DNA matches. Obviously, the higher the number, the closer your DNA match is going to be to you. 3,464 centimorgans I share with my daughter can only be 100% probability a parent-child match. Once you get further down, sibling is anywhere between usually 2,200 to 2,800 centimorgans, has a 97 to 99% chance of being siblings. Then it gets more fuzzy because the further you go, my half-sister Linda could have been a grandparent-grandchild match, but because she's only 11 years older than I am, that's out of the question. Neither of us have full known siblings, okay? Not half-siblings, full known siblings. That would have made us an aunt, uncle, niece, nephew match. So the only possibility, based on the 1,900 centimorgans I share with her, was half-sibling. Go to DNA Painter and plug in those centimorgan numbers of your DNA matches, or do it on Ancestry if you're there, and it'll show you the probability of how you're related based on the amount of centimorgans you share. You could also go by the percentage, but centimorgans is a little tighter than percentage, okay? Do all these sites help you if you have family from Mexico and Spain? Well, the sites don't usually help you themselves. You sort of need to help yourself. Now, if you have DNA ancestry through a DNA test showing your family is from Mexico and Spain, you can search for records on Ancestry. It's best to get a subscription, even if it's for a short time, with the World Edition. I think they're charging about $42 a month now for the World Edition. I know it's not cheap. You could do it for a month or two and then try to get some information, but you can also use familysearch.org. It's a free research genealogy site run by the Mormon Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You go to familysearch.org, sign up with an email address and a username, password combination, and you can get in and look for records of your family. They have a place for you to put a name, names and dates and location, and you can do similar research on that. Do not forget about your local library. Most local libraries have Ancestry Library Edition or Heritage Quest or ProQuest, which are several different research tools that some libraries have. Always contact your local library to see what they have on genealogy. One, do you recommend DNA Y testing? If you're a male, yes. If you're a female, Y DNA testing will not work because Y looks for the Y chromosome that only males have. I do recommend it, but after doing autosomal DNA testing, which is the regular DNA testing most of us have been doing. If you're a male, you can trace your male lineage through Y DNA testing. If you can afford it, always go for the biggest test available. Family tree DNA is one of the only ones that has Y DNA testing. It starts at 37 markers, I think at 119. It goes to 700 markers. They call the big 700 at $449. So consider your budget, what you're really looking for. You can find male lineage through autosomal DNA testing as well. What effect does my third great grandparents on my father's side being cousins cause? Well, that's sort of called endogamy. Endogamy means that family members married family members, okay? Whether direct family members like siblings or cousins marrying cousins, which is fairly close. Could be second or third cousins as well. It might skew your ancestry centimorgan numbers to some of your DNA matches. It might make them a little higher because you're getting DNA from the same family within the same family. Okay. So you're going to get a little bit of endogamous relationship centimorgan values. Generally, just go by the fact that they might not be related and look at the centimorgan numbers for that and percentage for that relationship. Now, if you find when you do the research that they were actually first cousins, then you would be able to figure that out a little bit. And then you might see that the centimorgan numbers might be a little higher. But when you get back that far, it might not be enough of a difference. For instance, if you have a third great grandparent, right? Great grandparent. That means you would share with them a fourth cousin. Now, fourth cousins, like my other one that I showed today, it said about 43 centimorgans. Now, if it's endogamous and they were cousins, it might be 48. It may be 52. And it still might be within a range of fourth cousins, but you might be related a little closer because of it. It's a little tougher to decipher when you have endogamous relationships. My family came from an area, half of my family came from an area called the Palace Settlement, where the Russians pushed the Jews into for several hundred years, almost 700 years. And a lot of families could only marry other family members because in their village, there were only family. So cousins married cousins. The Amish are also known for marrying cousins. Years ago in the South of the United States, there were a lot of cousin marriages. So keep it in mind when you do your tree, if you see something like that, mark it as such. Okay. Any suggestion, hints for super common names like Joseph Cohen in Brooklyn? Yeah, I see that all the time. I don't have any great suggestions. Use clues like who the children are, when he got married, when he was born, when he died, when he might have immigrated. Try to pinpoint the actual Joseph Cohen you're looking for. It's not easy. I guarantee you that's going to be a tough one. Joseph Cohen has to be one of the most common Jewish names in the New York City area that you're ever going to find. It's like John Smith out in the middle of West mid country of the country. John Smith is almost as bad as Joseph Cohen. So yes, always use clues. If you can trace down to a DNA relative, look to their trees to see what they say about when your actual DNA cousin's family came here. When were they born? When they died? Where were they? The who, the when, and the where are going to be the most important things you're looking for. Okay. The library edition of Ancestry often includes international records. Perfect. Thank you. Always use whatever's free or cheaper. If you do subscribe to Ancestry, newspapers, Fold 3, or anything else, and you're not using it, cancel it. Don't keep paying money for products or services like that gym membership you got in January. If you use it less than 3 times a year, dump it. Okay. How do you use your raw DNA from Ancestry on other sites? Okay, so Ancestry, you can, on Ancestry, if you DNA tested there, you can download from Ancestry your raw DNA data. You go to your DNA summary, you go to settings, there is a spot for you to download your DNA data to your computer. Don't open the file. Leave it intact. Put it on your desktop or in your download folder, okay? So that you have it. Then you can go to MyHeritage, Family Tree DNA, Living DNA, and GEDmatch if you wish. And then you sign up with them. The best thing to do is go to MyHeritage and look for the DNA tab. And then there's a spot for you to upload your DNA to MyHeritage. They all have similar features. Just look into them. Then you are going to get DNA matches that tested with MyHeritage, Family Tree DNA, and Living DNA for free. Living DNA is quite small. You're not going to find a lot of common matches or close matches on Living DNA. I'll just give you an idea of that. Family Tree DNA is good. MyHeritage is very good because it's available in 40 languages. So you're going to get people who might have tested from countries that speak other than English. So that's a useful tool for people who are looking for Mexico and Spain. France does have laws on the book that do not allow them to DNA test for privacy regions. There are ways of getting around that. So how do you use, okay. So how do you use your raw DNA? You download it, you upload it to the other DNA testing sites to get more matches. Are there a list of experts who can help you figure out your clues? Well, I don't know exactly if I'm an expert, but I am a professional genealogist. I've been doing research for 30 years. If you feel I might be a good fit, just send me an email or call my phone number. All right, it's on the recording. I will share the slides. I can, at the end, grab my contact list. Some of them are not very cheap. Okay. I don't feel that my fees are very expensive, but some of the places that you might look up for expert help to help you with your clues or your DNA matches and your tree building can be quite costly. When I first started, my wife suggested that I contact a group called The Locators, which was featured on the Dr. Phil show, and they wanted $1,000 find and no find. And they get the money up front like I do for a certain amount of hours of time because it's not about finding or not finding. It's about doing the research to find or not find, right? It's research time more than anything else. So consider your budget. Contact me. I can give you a quote. I can listen to what your goals are first. That's the most important thing. If I feel that you could use help in a different location or a different kind of researcher, then I'll let you know and I won't take your case because I'm not going to spend a lot of time on something and charge you money that I don't think I'm going to be able to help you with. Okay. Sometimes I do take cases that are more difficult and I don't find anything, or I find a lot. It all depends on the case and what your goals are. Um, uh, and there is a list. You can go to What's one of them? Uh, Cap Gen. Let me look it up really quick, and I'll give it to you. There is a list of certified genealogists. Certified genealogists mean that they took classes and they did file with a group of people that judge their work, their record keeping, their the way they do their genealogy, and it's a 3-panel person, and they decide whether you're going to be certified or not. You have to pay them. So it's sort of like if you've been doing it for a long time, you're pretty much professional. If you're certified professional, it means you can charge more money. Gen. Give me 1 second. I just want to make sure I answer that question well. Okay, I'm going to throw a couple of links in for you so you can grab them. And I want to make sure I'm doing to everybody so that everyone in meeting has it. Paste. That's one of them. And that way you can grab the link right away, okay? So that you can, if you want to, you can also look for them. What's the other one that I like to go to? That's a good one. I think you'll be able to find enough on that to their certification for genealogists, and they have a list of people who are certified through their site, and they might be able to help you. I don't want to go too far. So let me see. What are the typical fees for various types of searches? I can tell you what I charge. There really are no typical fees. It all depends on the expertise, the certification, how long they've been doing it, and pretty much what they feel like they're going to want to charge, depending on their overhead, whether they have staff. If they have staff, they'll probably charge more because they have to pay the staff and they want to make some money for themselves. So everybody is different. What I charge, I'll just tell everybody, I charge $50 an hour, $50 an hour. I usually have a 6-hour minimum, which would give you 6 hours of research time. And no, I don't do 6 hours straight. Don't pay me and say, call me in hour 7. It won't. Sometimes I can do 6 hours straight on your case, get it done, give you results, but most of the time, it'll take either several days, several weeks, or several months, depending on your goals and what I'm able to find. So it's usually about $300. There's no tax. It's a service. And that's that. If your case is fairly simple and I feel I can do it in 2 hours, I'll charge you just the 2 hours. Okay. DNA kits I do have usually on my desk. I don't make any money on those. I charge you whatever the prevailing rate at Ancestry is. And I usually do Ancestry testing. If you want to do a different one, let me know. I can always pick it up, or you can get it yourself and do everything yourself. But I help any way I can. Okay. All right. That's the end of the questions in the chat box. Does anybody have anything verbal they want to add? Anybody want to ask any more questions about anything genealogy related? It doesn't need to be about the subject of tonight. Excuse me. You can just unmute if you have a question. You could put your hand up. We'll ask you to unmute. Thank you. Pretty quiet out there, Annie. I can't hear you, Ann. You might have something turned down. Or you turned off your microphone, your headphone.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, no, just saying there you got another thank you, and this was a great program.
Right. Thank you so much. How long does it take to get certified? Well, everybody's different. You could take classes with the National Genealogical Society to learn more about it. If you feel that you know enough and you've done a lot of studying and you've done a lot of research into what it takes to become a certified genealogist, it could take you just a couple of weeks. Generally, what it means is that you have to pay a fee. You have to submit, I believe it's 3 projects. One could be your family. There have to be at least some historical features to one of them. You can go on that website that I posted, and they do have the recommendations and requirements for you to become certified. Okay. It tells you step by step. There's a form you fill out, a fee, and it'll tell you exactly what you need to do to get certified. Once you have all the paperwork and all your reports and everything that they want you to have, you submit it to them, and they have it's usually a 3-person panel of professional certified genealogists that will make a decision on whether you should be certified or not. I can't see them declining you unless your work is shoddy, that you're not using the right resources, and then you're not using genealogy the right way. But generally they would. And then there's a yearly fee you would need to keep up your membership with them in order to say certified with them. You get a certificate. And then the only thing about that is I'm not certified. I mean, I probably could do all the paperwork and pay the fee and all that. It's not going to yield me any more. It might yield me more clients, but the way I'm running my business right now is I have a lot. I was telling Annie before, I probably have a good 30 clients. Some are pretty much done, and some are not done. Pam, yes.
Okay, you made mention that you're going to be sending out the PowerPoint of the slides to the
Yes.
participants.
Well, I send the PowerPoint slides to the library as a PDF file format. So it's easy
Okay,
to open. So you don't have to open it. You don't have to have a Microsoft product to open up the slides. But I will send them as a PDF file so anybody can open it up with Reader.
thank you. Well, I've got that. So, all right, thank you.
Right. Yes. And Alicia did make a good point. You can subscribe and unsubscribe from Ancestry as often as you like. They do not prorate your membership when you unsubscribe. You can also change your membership level. And again, they do not prorate if lowering the level. So they don't give you any money back. But the thing is, and if you build a tree there, it doesn't disappear. You always, as a member, you always have the ability to have a free membership. You can be a free account holder at Ancestry and build the tree and use it. When you don't have a paid subscription, it's harder to do research. It's harder to see other people's trees and to do other things. So a paid subscription is worthwhile if you're using Ancestry as your main research database, family tree building, and DNA testing, so that you can use the tools. Okay. And there you go. And there's going to be a link to the video. So anybody registered today will be able to watch the video again for, I think I'm allowing it for like 2 months. So, okay. Yeah, they're going to give you the link for the YouTube there as well. All right. Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, I like giving these presentations. They're lucrative for me. I make some money doing it, but you guys also get a good education, and it gives you a little insight into what I do every day. I was telling Annie, I have a recent client that had a very close match, parent-child, doesn't know who it is. Okay. So it's either his child, can't be his parent because he's 81. So it's not very unlikely that he has a parent that gave birth to him at 20 that's alive at 101 and DNA tested. So most likely it's his child. It's possible. Don't get me wrong. It's possible. But I believe I found the truth, and it's very exciting because I'm having a meeting with the DNA match later this evening. So it's going to be a very exciting evening for me because it's a very interesting case. And I'm happy that I'm able to reunite an unknown child with their father. Okay.
This is Elisa, and I wanted to say that I found, so using Ancestry and also GEDmatch, and thank you for showing how to triangulate in Ancestry, because I was using GEDmatch to do that.
Mm.
But an interesting thing is there's a lady that lives a mile from me, and she is my first to second cousin. And we still have not figured out how we're related. It's very odd.
Okay, so you're a DNA match to her. Do you know how many centimorgans you share?
I don't remember that.
Okay, so the best thing to do is go to Ancestry and you click on the amount of centimorgans you share, and it'll come up with the list like I showed on my first slide. And then you want to discount anyone that doesn't make sense. Okay?
Yeah.
How old is she? Is she near your age? She might be on the same generational level as you.
Yeah, she's near my age.
So then she would either be a first or a second cousin. So then your most common recent ancestor at first cousin, the way it works is for every G and grandparent, that's the cousin you are. So if you share a common set of grandparents, one G, she would be your first cousin. If you share a common great grandparent, then she would be a second cousin. Now, if she's off one generation, she could be a first cousin once removed. Or if you only share one grandparent, not both, like a grandmother or grandfather, where somebody had a child with another person, and that's your relationship, you could be a half first cousin. And that's all going to fall within that first to second cousin relationship kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just found it interesting. She only lives a mile away from me now, and I'm not even from here.
Okay. Well, you just happen to get lucky to move close to a very close relative.
Yeah.
So sort of use the tools that if she has a tree, try to build out her tree to where you match into her tree, unless she's an adoptee. If she's an adoptee and she's building out her adopted family, you're not going to find connections.
Yeah.
Okay. But if she is an adoptee and you're not, you might be able to help her find out who her biological family is based on you being a DNA match.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anybody have anything else? I'm going to get ready for this meeting with this client's family. It's going to be whew, crazy. Well, one of his DNA matches, mother, was known, I don't know if anybody out there is old enough, was known as the hip hypnotist. So if you want to look her up, she's a little bit famous. So it's pretty neat that I found that one of his, I believe she's to him a half niece, and that he has a very famous relative related to his half sister was actually the hip hypnotist, and her daughter's godmother was Lucille Ball, and her godfather was Ed Begley Sr. So it was very interesting to find this out. And we're like almost friends already at this point with this DNA match that's not related to me, but my client. And we spoke several times and it was so interesting. And I says, oh, she happens to work for a company called RCI, which handles vacation travel through timeshares, which I am a timeshare owner, and I'm a member of RCI. And when I saw that she was, like one of these people that you call to get a vacation book through RCI, that's what she does. The next day I got billed by RCI for my yearly, I got billed by RCI for my yearly fee, just so when I was talking to her. And I thought it was just so funny that it happened to be that way. I'm like, oh, I have a timeshare. I use RCI all the time. And she's like, oh, well, I don't work on the weekends, but she works late till like 9:00. And so I called her at like 10:15. I go, are you awake? I don't want to disturb you. She goes, oh, no, I go to sleep really late. And then once we started talking about genealogy, she goes, oh, she's like, I'm not going to fall asleep until like 3:00 in the morning. My brother-in-law works for IT in RCI. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a big company. Yeah, you're going to find people. But I use them quite often. So it's funny that she happens to work for them. But she's like, oh, I'm going to be up until 3 a.m. I'm like, don't kill yourself. That's one thing I'll say to the rest of the group that's here before I cut off. I have a great saying, and people love it. They laugh all the time, but genealogy is like fishing. Okay. Because if fishing was that easy, they would have called it catching. Okay. So don't stress yourself too much, whether you're an adoptee or you have a lot of unknown family or you have endogamy or you have people, what's called NPEs, non-parent expected, like my cousin Shannon thought Michael Niles was a father, found out through testing her half brothers that her father, that she thought was her father, is not her father. So it's a non-parent expected kind of thing. So she's going to look for her biological father. Don't let it stress you too much. Go into genealogy with an even emotional mindset. Okay. You're going to find what I call the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay. You're going to find people who are open and welcoming. You're going to find people who slam the door in your face. You're going to find people who did bad things in their past, alcoholics, drug addicts, murderers, everything. You don't know what you're going to find. So always keep an even emotional keel on what you find and what you think you're going to find. How often does the testing and methodology change? The testing doesn't really change. I mean, they might get better at doing it faster, but pretty much the system they worked out on how to decipher, get the DNA from your saliva or your cheek, and how they decipher it is pretty much standard industry practice now. Okay. They might get tools or information that is easier for them to use. But the methodology and the testing pretty much, I don't think is going to change all that much unless they come out with new technology that'll make it easier, faster, or more detailed. Every DNA testing company does use different formula or algorithms. So if you tested one and tested another, your numbers, especially on ethnicity, might be a little different. Okay. Some test more for certain regions and find information about certain regions, and then others test and find information about different regions. So you might have more Irish on one and more Scottish on another and more English on another. But when you DNA test with Ancestry, you're only getting matched with people who tested with Ancestry, unless you download and upload to another company to find other DNA matches. Some company Ancestry has weighted and unweighted values. So it means some of the companies will show you full identical match segments, and some will only show you half identical segments. And you can look it up. If I get into the science of this, we'll be here another 2 hours. You can look up half identical segments, full identical segments, and what's the difference. So some of the numbers in Ancestry might not reflect certain parts of the chromosome. Okay. Some DNA testing companies will show all the segments, full and half segments. So you can, look that up. Like I said, I could do a whole nother program on that. It would be a lot more scientific and might go over some people's heads when I start getting into that. I'm not a scientist. I was never perfectly great at science, though I did very well in chemistry. So I use methodology and tools and techniques that I learned doing my own research, and from people like from Diane Southard, Blaine Bettinger, a whole bunch of other hosts of people that are experts in the field, and my studying and testing I did and passed successfully with the National Genealogical Society. So over 30 years of research, and now doing DNA testing for the last 10 years or so, and my business for 5 years or 4.5 years now. I think I know enough to help a lot of clients, and I've done a lot of good. Some of them, were a bit harder and didn't work out as planned for the client. But I tell them, it's not about the results, it's about the research. You don't know what you're going to find until I hear your goals, what you want to find, what you think you want to find, and what's actually out there. Not everything is out there. Remember, people from Eastern Europe, Poland, Russia, Germany, a lot of the records were destroyed between World War I and World War II. So there are some records that you're never going to be able to find. Things have been tried to be recreated through family trees. And remember, family trees are only a guide. Other trees that you find, remember to do your own research. Make sure they have a few documents listed in there so that you can see what might be correct and might not be correct, and the who, when, and where. Okay, I'll leave it there. How often? Okay, we got that. I'll leave it there, guys. I hope to have more presentations with the Kansas City Library, Kansas, not Missouri.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, I know there's a whole host of topics that you cover, and we'll definitely want to have you back again. Thank you
Awesome.
so much, Eric, and thank you everybody for joining us. Watch your email because I will be sending a link to the video and the PDF of all the slides from today.
Okay, thank you guys. I really appreciate you hosting me and everybody showing up. I had a great time.
Thank you.
All right, bye guys.